to today's video on Pluto entering Aquarius. This is happening on the 20th of January 2024, and it is a very big deal. Now, we may not feel this happening exactly on this day. However, because the sun is with Aquarius on the 20th, I do think we're going to get some kind of illumination in our life of how the changes and the transformation that Pluto brings is going to affect us on a personal level. Another thing you can do to see how this transit will affect you is think about what was happening in your life on December 21st, 2020, because that's when Jupiter and Saturn met at the 0 degree of Aquarius. So that was a big deal in our lives. There was a lot of stuff going on in the world at that time that we may see reflections of. Think about what was happening in December. There were things happening. There were rules being made related to what we could and couldn't do. And yeah, we're going to see how that all plays out. But one of the things I always do, guys, whenever we're live is I have to check on the video. So give me a second here. Okay, so what we're talking about today is how Pluto entering Aquarius will affect all 12 signs of the zodiac. I'm going to go into this for each sign. We're going to do an all signs forecast for Saturday, January 22nd. If you want more on what Pluto and Aquarius is going to do for society, what I think the themes are going to be, because remember, this is a 20-year transit. Pluto enters Aquarius in January. It comes back out later this year. And then in November 2024 is when Pluto enters Aquarius to stay, and it will stay there for 20 years. So that being said, we are still going to feel this energy. We're going to feel the shift in the energy, but it's like, it's like Pluto's gone over the fence. It's going to come back again, and then it'll be the final shift in energy. If you want to know, again, what Pluto and Aquarius means for all of us, I have a video on that goes over what to expect in the world, what kind of things I sort of predict loosely. Keep in mind that I'm not a predictive astrologer. That's not my specialty. So if you want someone to tell you in a reading like what's going to happen in March, that's not what I'm good at. I'm good at helping you work with the transits. I'm really good at helping you learn how to transform using your chart and work with your chart, work with the energies of your chart to become your best self, to make the most out of the chart that you have. That's what I'm good at. So that's what our videos are focused on. Here's to 20 years. Yes. Hello, Socrates Dancing, and welcome on to anyone else joining us today. We're going over this very exciting, yet maybe even scary transit. And I don't think it's a scary transit, but I know people get afraid of Pluto, and it's like this big thing that everyone kind of wants to know. And so the one thing to know, though, is you're going to feel Pluto entering Aquarius more strongly if you have personal planets at the 0 degree of fixed signs. So the fixed signs are going to be Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, or Aquarius. So if you have a personal planet between 0 and like 5 degrees of any of those signs, so that's going to be the sun, the moon, Mercury, Mars, Venus. If you have any of those planets in those places, that you are going to be the ones who are affected the most by this. Now we can also see people with planets in the air signs. So that's going to be 0 to 5 degrees of Libra, 0 to 5 degrees of Gemini, or 0 to 5 degrees of Aquarius. So if you have personal planets in these places, then this is more of a big deal transit for you. That's more of a life-changing transit for you. That's one to definitely get your reading on it to find out what area of life based on the planet and based on the house that it's in and the house that planet rules. Because we have to factor in all of that stuff to see like kind of how Pluto's going to have its way with you. And usually Pluto transits are hard. They're not usually easy, but they can sometimes help us in the sense that when we go down into the underworld, which is what Pluto rules, right? Like, if you think of the Pluto story, the biggest story that Pluto is known for in the mythology that we hear about a lot is Pluto, the Persephone myth, where Pluto kidnaps Persephone, takes her to the underworld. Now, some people say she went willingly. Others say she was kidnapped and then he tricked her into eating pomegranate seeds. For every pomegranate seed, that was like a certain amount of time she had to stay there. So then he agreed to release her, but she still had to come back 6 months out of the year. And so when we think of platonic love, it's like, I love you so much, I want to kidnap you, you know? And some of you think that shit's cute. That means you are probably platonic. Others are like, no, get the hell away from me. It just depends on your own energies. Now, some of you are like, no, that's me in this situation. I'm the stalker in this situation. Either way, with Pluto, love is like, if you love someone, you want to control them. And there's more that Pluto rules besides just love and relationships. It also rules, you know, our fears and the things that we kind of hide away in our psyche. And the thing about Pluto is, you know, it takes you to the underworld. It takes you to hell, but you can also come back from hell. And when you come back from hell and you've already gone through hell, you have a new level of power that you did not have before. So Pluto transits do get a bad rap, and there is a reason for that. And the things that take us through hell the most are things that make us powerless, where we lose something we wanted. We lose a relationship. We lose a loved one. We lose a certain aspect of our identity, right? So these losses are kind of like Pluto type things as well. So today we're going into what this Pluto transit means for all signs of the zodiac. So we're going to go from Aries to Pisces, and I think we should just get into it. This is happening on January 20th. Now, there's more stuff happening on this day. We also have Mercury coming out of shadow. So I want you to think about what was happening in your life around the 22nd of December. What were you realizing in terms of what's not working in your long-term plans? Think about that. And on the 20th of January, there might be, it's almost like now we know the path ahead. From December 22nd till now, it's like we have more awareness of where our plans are not working, and maybe can tinker with that a little and play with it a little and explore different things related to that, which is, I recommend, because then we're going to have the data. It's like on the 20th or around then, this is where maybe we get the data, the hard facts, the evidence that we need to really be able to approach our long-term plans with all the information, or with the solution, or with the path ahead. So that is what I think about that. And let's get into the chart. This is where we see that when Pluto does enter Aquarius, it's going to be there with the sun. So I do think it would be worth it to consider what's happening in your life on the 20th of January to see what is illuminated related to your fears, what you want to transform, and themes of power and powerlessness in your life. I wouldn't be surprised if some kind of new technology is revealed, or there's something going on about aliens on this day, or something where some AI that's already been built behind the scenes, some secret technology is revealed. That's one way that this could happen. Now, keep in mind that Pluto has had everything to do with all the stuff we saw happening in 2020. So I would not be surprised if we see something revealed about the technology of the vax around the 20th, or more information about what really happened that was kept secret. Now that's already been happening, but there might be something bigger showing up at this time. So that being said, let's get into the forecast. All right, let me see. I just need to change this up a bit. Yes. Also, for those of you who really want to know about your Pluto, I highly recommend using Porphyry, the Porphyry house system, when looking at Pluto, because especially if you're looking at Pluto from like a transformational perspective. I'm just getting our chart on the right place to start here. Okay. Perfect. All right, so we have our chart up and we're going to start with Aries rising and we're going to go through all the rising signs on what we see happening for each sign. So for Aries, sun, moon, and rising, we have Pluto entering Aquarius in your 11th house of friends, hopes, and dreams, and money from the work you've done. So Pluto entering that 11th house can bring some focus on the work that you're doing in the world. It can bring a desire to put yourself out there more. The 11th and 5th house axis is, to me, a very creative axis, a very creative set of energies. So the 5th house is like, I'm making this and I'm in the creation side. And the 11th house is more like giving the people what they want. So with Pluto entering that 11th house, it's the beginning of a long transformation of how you relate to groups of people. Now, this could be something like putting yourself out there in groups more, teaching groups, speaking in front of groups, having a wider social media audience, having more control over your audience, being more provocative on social media, getting more attention, having more power. But it can also be needing to change who you hang out with. You can also realize the root cause of things in that house, so you can get to the reason why you want what you want, and that can help clarify your path ahead. You can get to the reason why you have the friends that you have. You can, if there's something going on with your friends or your acquaintances that isn't positive, that's challenging, if there's like, I don't know, it's like you could find out that one of your friends is doing something behind your back or something. That's not going to be everyone, but that is one way this can show up. Either way, Pluto going into that 11th house for Aries, sun, moon, and rising will change the way you relate to people, will change the way you relate to the world. And since Pluto rules your 8th house, it can have to do with your trusted relationships versus your public relationship. Now that can be creating trust with more people that like reaches further. It could be having a reputation that people are spreading more, like stuff you've done on a more one-on-one level with people now becomes more public. That's another way that could show up. And also, some of this can have to do with money because Pluto rules your 8th house of other people's money, and it goes into your 11th house of money from the work you've done. So especially if you've ever worked with any kind of investments or things where you're merging money with people and it's mixed and you get percentages and they get percentages. The example I think of is like, let's say you wrote a song with someone and you had royalties and they had royalties and now that song gets big. That's not going to be for everyone, but that is just one example. So let's go on now to our next sign, which is Taurus. Okay, so for Taurus, Pluto enters Aquarius, which is going to be your 10th house of your reputation, your legacy, what you're leaving behind, what you are known for. So this is the beginning of a change of what you are known for. That can be felt as something you want to be known for. It can be something more challenging. We don't know. But either way, Pluto is going to begin to transform your reputation. And it can make you more powerful, right? Because it's the planet of power. But there can also be challenges. So it can range from like power struggles with bosses down to you stepping into your own power and like doing your own thing and like doing your own job, doing your own work. But, Pluto in the 10th house of legacy, for some people, this may have more to do with your plans for your retirement or your plans for after you die, for those who that affects. Now, just take that if it resonates, because that's not going to be everyone. But it's like Pluto has really been working on your sense of meaning in life and your ability to feel like life is meaningful. Pluto has been kind of purging that area. So now it's purged and it's time to change and focus on making changes in your public image. For some, this is rebranding, things like that. Things like having a new job that does require more power or less power. For others, for some, it might have to do with your partner. So some of you who have like are married or have a long-term relationship, Tauruses, this might be your partner, their reputation changing, because Pluto in the chart can represent your partner because it rules your 7th house. So it could be like your partner's legacy is different. Your partner's planning for retirement. Your partner has all this power in their work. And that just showing us that you're seeing that now. With the sun there, though, it's kind of bringing that more in focus around the 20th. So we are going to go now to the next sign, which is Gemini. For Geminis, we have Pluto entering the 9th house of the meaning of life. And this house, I don't love it. I don't love it when anything transits the 9th house, because what you think you're going to get with a 9th house transit is like, oh, life is more meaningful. Yay. But what you usually get is more of a feeling of like, what even matters? What is meaningful at all? So Pluto can transform what you consider to be your faith. It can transform in the sense of education. It can bring changes, big changes to how educated you are, how much you know about a subject. It can change if you are someone who teaches in any capacity. It can change how you teach. And it can also help you get to the root cause. Now, I think one good thing for Geminis on this one, Pluto can help you understand why things are the way they are. So if you are someone who wants to understand the nature of reality, the meaning of life, universal law, and all the stuff that's like deeper than that, that's not even mainstream, that's like secret and nobody knows, Pluto will help with this. Pluto will help you to get to the actual secrets of the universe. And so I think that might be one of the fun things about this transit for Geminis. Now also, because Pluto is your 6th house ruler and is going into the 9th house, a lot of Geminis might have this be a cycle of life where you're finding what's more meaningful in your work. And it might start with realizing how your work isn't fulfilling, right? Especially with this Saturday, the sun shining that spotlight on it. So it's like you're going to see clearly what you hate about your job, or what is not fulfilling about your work, or what in your day-to-day schedule you feel chained to, you feel powerless over, that you don't like. And that illumination it's the potential to use this is to see it and know that like the thing about Pluto is like it's not going anywhere. So whatever you realize related to your day-to-day schedule and how you do things and how you're spending your time, that's what I feel for Gemini. It's how you're spending your time and whether that spending of time is meaningful or not. That's what I think Geminis are going to see and feel right now. And I think that the way to use this transit is to see it and like let it be illuminated. And some of you might get some good ideas around this time of where you want to travel to or how you want to be free. And some of that might come from an initial situation where you're not free, where it's like, you have more responsibilities that you just don't like right now. So if that's the case, it's okay. And there's potential to change this slowly over time so that, by the end of the 20 years, you may be able to feel like you've made steps toward having a more meaningful life. And I feel like that's not very inspiring. Sorry, Geminis, but, for others of you, this might have some legal stuff going on. There might be some legal stuff, some issues with teachers and mentors and feelings of like disillusionment or disappointment, or I don't know, some extreme cases. You might have a mentor or a teacher or someone you looked up to becoming exposed or having secrets revealed about them that maybe are kind of disappointing to you or something like that. It may or may not be disappointing, and that may or may not be true for everyone. That is just going to be some Geminis at this time. Okay. I think another kind of extreme example here would be maybe some Geminis during this time will develop abilities to communicate with pets that have passed over. That is very specific, so only take that if it resonates. We're going to move on now to the next sign, which is going to be for the, Cancers. For Cancers, Pluto moving into the 8th house here on January 20th is going to bring the beginning of big changes in other people's money or your intimacy. So trust issues will probably be brought up at this time, or even just, Pluto really bringing you closer. Pluto's going to bring you deeper into that topic, right? So the 8th house topic is trust and entanglements. Now, this could be like a relationship you develop more trust, and it's like you would go through hell for each other, right? Because Pluto is going through hell for a thing. So there's that. It can also be with this 8th house, other people's money, especially if you want to, get into investments and managing debt or assets or interest or anything where you are investing and dealing with other people's money. So accounting and things like that count here. Now there's other stuff the 8th house can be, right? It can be psychic abilities. It can be death. Now, this doesn't mean everyone dies when Pluto goes in here, but it can mean that you have more experiences with the topic of death. Now that could be your friends all have deaths that they're grieving and they're not your personal, you personally dealing with that. It could be the other side, ghosts and stuff. Or even like not ghosts, but like people who've passed on becoming spirit guides, stuff like that can really happen. For some Cancers, that's not going to be everyone either. But overall, that 8th house is transformation. And transformation usually involves facing fears. So I would say this is a time for Cancers where you might have some experiences, especially the 20th, that are sort of beginning, that are maybe slowly beginning, that involve you choosing consciously to face your fears. And with Jupiter in the 11th, if you need support at this time, maybe you have friends who will help you. If you're going to be speaking in public and that's the fear you're going to face, well, maybe you can have some friends show up there. It really does feel like Jupiter's there to support, even though it's not necessarily making a super strong aspect. I mean, I guess technically it is a square, but Jupiter squares that's going to make it better. Jupiter makes it better. So that's what we have for Cancers. Let's go on now to our next sign, which is going to be Leos. For Leos, Pluto enters Aquarius in your 7th house. So this is a time of changes in relationships. Now, I wish I could say all these changes are going to be good and perfect. It's not always the case. Sometimes it's a little rougher with Pluto in the 7th. It just depends on the situation. But Pluto does tend to bring you deeper into the topic. So for Leos who are already with someone, you can expect that Pluto in this transit will intensify your relationship. Now, intensify doesn't always mean bad. It can. Sometimes you're walking through something that your partner's going through and it's difficult. Sometimes you are going through hell with the person and you're doing it together. Sometimes there can be losses, but I don't feel like Pluto just going through a sign isn't enough for us to say you're going to lose something. Pluto hitting a personal planet while it's going through a sign, there's potential loss happening, maybe at that moment where that conjunction happens. But you would even have to see which planet it is to see what kind of thing. So it's not always you lose your partner. Sometimes it's like your partner loses their job or your partner loses their loved one or something. So just keep that in mind. It's not like every Leo rising is going to have their husband die, right? Like it's not like that. But we do see changes in relationship, and we also see with Pluto going through the seventh, the potential of power struggles in relationship. So for Leos during this time, think about around the 20th, what dynamics in your relationship are empowering you and supporting you, and what dynamics might be keeping you stuck a bit, especially if you are around that energy. That sort of worst case scenario is someone who's like, you can't leave me, where are you ever gonna go, you're nothing without me. Or they do something really, really abusive and horrible to you, and they're like, this was for your own good, like sort of this psychological manipulation happening. Now, because Pluto's in the seventh house, this can apply to long-term relationships, marriages, partners, but it can also apply to long-term friends. Keep in mind, though, that it doesn't always work quite like that. Pluto's going to slowly work on you in this area of life. So what are the challenges, Leo, in your relationship? Pluto's going to show you. It's going to show you. It's like Pluto's like popping a pimple, you guys. I know it's like disgusting, but it's the best analogy, because if there's nothing below the surface, there's not going to be a pimple and you're going to be fine. But the fact that Pluto's here means there probably is something below the surface, and it's going to be brought up. And just like a pimple, you can put stuff on it, but like you can't really get rid of the root cause without bringing it all up, exposing it, bringing it to the light of day, and then addressing it. This is what Pluto will do. So let's say you are in a relationship, Leo, and there are some problems, but you want to work through them. This is a very, very good time to actually consciously work together with your partner to see what root causes you're dealing with and to address them and to heal them, whether that be in your own psychological stuff or theirs. Now, this doesn't mean you have a willing partner at this time, but because we're talking about you, but that Pluto will help you see what's going on. And then, whether they're willing or not, what you need to do, that's a totally, that's its own story here. But there will be changes in relationships for Leos at this time. That is a given, and it is a must. And the more that you are open to change, open to be flexible, open to see what needs to be changed, Leos, fixed signs, that sometimes that's not easy, the better. Now, also, sometimes changes in relationship aren't really bad, right? Sometimes it's like maybe some Leos are like having kids at this time, and the nature of your relationship has to change because of the things that you're going through together. So it can be that you're going through things together that require you as a couple to grow and change and step into a new version of you as a couple. And that can be what's happening for Leos as well. So we're going to go to the next sign now, which is Virgos. Virgo, sun, moon, and rising. Pluto is entering Aquarius for you in your sixth house. So we see changes to health. We see changes to work. Work and health are the two big ones. So you may notice there are changes to your work that you have to address. Whatever is happening in your daily schedule, your work life, your routine, or your health that hasn't been working, you may see that ramp up a bit. You may see that theme get stronger. Now, there is some good stuff with Pluto in the sixth. If you have some health stuff, generally Pluto in the sixth energetically supports finding root causes. And so that means when you are doing things to address a root cause, whether it be with your health or with your schedule, and this is not medical advice, but when you are doing the things that would address the root cause instead of trying to put a band-aid on it, right? So it's like, I'll just use myself as an example. If my stomach is hurting, I can take antacid. That's not going with Pluto, okay? That is not going with Pluto because Pluto will force me to change what I'm eating that's causing the stomach to hurt, okay? So there are other ways this can show up in non-health stuff in schedule, right? Like if your schedule is like you never give yourself enough time for anything and you want to address it by putting a band-aid on it and just like not really dealing with it, but like I don't know how I would think of a band-aid for this. Let me think. Just like not dealing with like, oh, I'm just going to sleep less. You're not going to sleep less probably. Most people, that's not a real solution to time management. So doing things with your time management, if you realize at this time that it's an issue, you would have to actually change what you're spending your time on. That's like how you solve the problem and change your approach to time. And, so for Virgos who are trying to like be a CEO or have your own business or do something like that where you're trying to step into a more powerful version of yourself, you may have to address time management issues. You may have to address not just how you spend your time, but how you work, because the sixth house is work and service. Are you being useful? Are you in a position where you are being useful? If not, Pluto may sort of begin to make that shift for you to get to a position where you are being more useful and your gifts are really helping the world. Are you getting better at your craft? This is another sixth house thing. Are you putting in the time and effort to be better at what you do? Usually Virgos are, but sometimes that focus Virgos have on, and this is true for everyone, sometimes the focus we have on our getting better ends up just being us kind of shitting on ourselves and being like, oh, I should do better. I need some water here. I'm always dying of thirst on these. Okay, so Pluto can make you... Okay, sometimes we tell ourselves we're becoming better and we're actually not, right? Sometimes we will like go into self-analysis and it just ends up being mental stuff going back and forth, and it doesn't actually translate into being more efficient, being more effective, being more useful. So Pluto will help Virgos become more useful at this time, and it's going to help by showing you ways that you are not being useful, ways that you are not using your time how you should, or using your time in a way that aligns with what you want. So Pluto is going to show you that too. Pluto will also show you when it's in the sixth house. A lot of stuff with work can come up. Now, the sixth house is the work that you do. It's not always the money that you make. So Pluto going through the sixth isn't a transit where you're like, okay, now I'm going to be a millionaire. It's possible. It's still possible here, but it's not. Pluto by itself here isn't going to do that. Pluto by itself is going to make you better, make you a better worker, make you a better, and I don't even want to say Pluto's going to do that. Pluto's going to show you the consequences of not being a better worker. Pluto's going to show you the consequences of not being as healthy as you could be. And again, the way to work with Pluto going through the sixth is find the root cause. And it is a very good time for personal development, but I'm saying this as a warning to Virgos because sometimes we tell ourselves we're developing and we're just criticizing ourselves and we're not doing anything differently. Pluto will help. The way to work with Pluto here is to be willing to change. Be willing to change your approach to your daily schedule, your work, your routines, and create a routine that is working for you and address problems in your routine early on, because when Pluto transits a house, it's like you're not getting out of the change. Pluto will sort of work on you, and it will work on you, and you don't even know necessarily what it's doing until after. So this is 20 years of Pluto working on your schedule and your work and how you spend your time, how you spend your daily life. What is your day-to-day 9 to 5? What time do you wake up in the morning? How do you sleep? How do you eat? What do you eat? How often? How much exercise are you getting? How much time are you spending outdoors? Like, what are you doing? This is what Pluto's going to change. And there's lots of ways that can change. And this one isn't the easiest one. It's not my favorite thing, Pluto in the 6th. So if you have this one, another thing you can do is you can see where Pluto is in porphyry in your chart, if it might be in the 5th house, because that one's a little more fun, and there's a little more that you can do to work with it as well. So let's go on now to Libras. Pluto entering that 5th house. This one's fun. I think this one's fun because it's your creativity. So really pay attention, Libras, to what you want to do creatively and what's changing with that. What was changing back in March, April, May of last year, 2023, as far as how you are being creative, how you are approaching your self-employment, what's changing when it comes to your business, if you have one, how you do your business, how you make your mark on the world, how you, the 5th house is like, I'm trying to put it into words. It's like our babies, right? And that baby can be an actual baby, but it can also be how we birth new things into being, right? The things we give birth to metaphorically. Sometimes those are kids, and sometimes they're businesses, and sometimes they're jokes, right? And sometimes they're novels. Whatever your own, from your own heart and your own soul, your creative spark is encouraging you to create and do, whether it's for money or not. This is what Pluto is going to get to work on in you. Now, for some people that might affect your children. There might be big changes to your life related to children, or big changes to your kids' lives. You could have just one of your children, if you have kids, like from now until 20 years, they just make all these changes. They're just always transforming, which is pretty much fine, but sometimes it can be destabilizing for us when other people change, because we're like, who are you? So watch out for that in terms of the ability to let it be okay that someone else is changing, and the ability to not put your identity, not connect your identity to the identity of other people. Because if you are a Libra who is having one of your children be the thing that this Pluto transit is manifesting, is the manifestation of, that's the thing to watch out for, is that the more you don't have your identity tied to who your kids are, the more that you'll be okay during this transit. Now, let's talk about how this can show up for non-kid, childless people, or in other ways besides through children. Again, self-employment. You could start a new business at this time. You could change the way your business is if you have a business. Gambling rule is in the 5th house. For those who gamble, that might be affected. I'm not saying you should or you shouldn't. Other things are like creativity, that creative spark. How you express yourself in the world may change here for Libras. And that can be you just start doing a new thing you weren't doing before. And the thing is, you don't have to try for that kind of stuff. It'll just bubble up on its own, and you'll want to do it naturally. That's how you know. No one has to tell you, if you're going to take a course on it, you just want to. It's like it comes from you. It emanates from you. And those are the things that you're pushing forward. So your creativity and how you express yourself in the world can be changing at this time. So pay attention to what that might be, because whatever you see happening Saturday the 20th, or beginning, starting to begin at this time, even if it's slowly, has the potential to slowly build over time as Pluto gets further on into Aquarius. And so, Pluto does move sort of like a slow burn, and it's almost like, it's not like a fire, because a fire will just pick up. But it really kind of just slowly, imagine You have like a little snowball. Okay. Pluto's like a snowball in a way because, it starts out slow and then it builds and it builds and it builds. And once it has some momentum, right, it can do very big things. But in the beginning, it's just a little bit of a thing. So know that whatever you're doing at this time, that's just a little bit of a thing. If you stick with it, does have the potential to build. I'm not saying you're guaranteed to be successful, but it's like Pluto will bring your energy and your focus into this area of life. So moving on now to the next sign, which is going to be Scorpios. For Scorpios, Pluto in that fourth house. Okay, so when Pluto goes into your fourth house of home and family, it changes the way your family is. But the thing is that it's a 20-year shift. So it's like you can take a snapshot of what your family's like now, and then once Pluto leaves Aquarius, take another snapshot. It's totally different. Now, everyone's family changes over 20 years' time, right? It's never going to be exactly the same, but when Pluto goes into the fourth, it's bigger changes. And it can change your role within the family. So that whoever you are in your family now, it's like you're probably not going to be that same person when Pluto leaves. Now, it can also make you closer to your family or help you learn things about your family. So this could be like, I'm trying to think. You could get closer to certain family members. You could learn your family's secrets. You could have secrets. There could be a theme of someone in your family having secrets from you or something like that. Now, Pluto in the fourth can also bring that sort of intensity and some power struggles. So it's possible you could have some power struggles with certain family members. You could have, but I feel like it's more likely to have some entanglements with family members at this time. Now, if you're at an age where you have your own family, Pluto is probably just going to bring you deeper into that focus topic. Like, these are my kids, this is my house, focusing a lot in on it. And there's nothing wrong there. For some people, it'll bring a focus of your parents into your life. Now, that could be because a mom or a dad comes and lives with you, but it could be something different. It could be your mom or your dad is going through their own change and you're witnessing that transformation. It doesn't mean like your parents die when Pluto goes in the fourth. That's too general to say. But overall, your family life will change. Now, this could also be your home changes. Your home changes, like your hometown goes through changes and it's not recognizable 20 years from now. It could be your physical home changes, like because you move or you change it and you upgrade it and you downgrade it or whatever. So changes to your home, changes to your family, changes to your own emotional foundation. Why? Because the fourth house is our roots. So this is the part that I don't like. Okay, I don't like Pluto going through the fourth house or the first house. And the reason is, it's not even I don't like it. It's that this planet doesn't match the energy of that house at all. So Pluto going through the fourth house is destabilizing because our fourth house is our roots and our foundation. So when Pluto goes through it, it's like things that you relied on to define yourself, things that you relied on to feel okay, those things may change and you may have to figure out who you are without those things. And maybe that is the home you grew up in, right? When you see the home you grew up in as someone else's house, it's like, what the hell? Things like this that are kind of normal, but still slightly destabilizing because all these little things are what make us feel grounded and secure, right? Now, that doesn't mean everyone you know is going to die in a car crash and you're going to have to figure it out. Keep in mind, Pluto transits can be very slow and general, like that snowball that just starts with a little piece of snow. So pay attention to what's changing in your family or your home life around the 20th of January. because it may illuminate some kind of problem related to any of these areas that needs to be resolved. And the more that you allow yourself to resolve the problem, the easier, and I don't like using the word easy with Pluto, but the easier the transit will be. If you want to find out your genealogy or your family tree or any other things related to your roots or like where your family came from, this might be a time where there's focus on that as well. So that can be a more positive manifestation too. Another thing is it's like your role in life becomes more family related or it's more related to your home. And again, you're more focusing on that. So let's go on now to the next sign, which is going to be our Sagittariuses. For Sagittarius, Pluto entering that third house means Pluto's coming out of your money house. So you can reflect now and know there'll be another little couple month transit where there's a little more here where Pluto changes your money a little bit more. But it might be a nice time to look at how has your money changed since Pluto entered Capricorn, and how do you relate to money in a different, more empowering way now? Pluto entering your third will put focus on siblings and communication and your neighborhood, your local environment. Now, this might be something as simple as you don't travel as much. You care more about your neighborhood. You're more interested in your neighbors. Maybe you live in a place where it's like there's more of a community and you want to talk to people, or, it could be the opposite where your neighbors become more private or you want more privacy from your neighbors and you get it. Maybe you move into your own place where you had roommates or something else like that, where it reflects this change to focusing on your neighborhood in a way, but also keeping your own stuff private. Now, the third house is also communication. So we could see a change to how you communicate. Now, that's really broad. I mean, lots of things can change how you communicate. So that might be you focusing on changing how you communicate. Maybe so some like worst case scenario for that could be like you have a speech disorder and you start getting treatment for it, or you can't say certain things in another language and you start figuring out how to, right? It could be something that simple. It could be marketing, right? For those who have your own businesses or who are doing copywriting or doing any kind of marketing. This could be you really seeing what's wrong with your marketing and being like, okay, we're going to change this. We're going to work on it. Pluto will help you do those things. So if you want to get to the root cause of why people don't listen to you, why you're not being heard, how you need to speak or interact with people in a way that they do listen to you, speak in a more powerful way, this can all be accomplished while Pluto's in the third. And you may find that these topics, if there are challenges here, you will become more aware of those challenges. Pluto will bring up that stuff that needs to purge. It will show you what needs to be cleared out. Now, I'm trying to think of other ways. Now, sibling stuff can come up here. And if it does, it's probably not good. It's probably not good. If it's sibling stuff, it's probably not good. This does not mean every Sagittarius rising siblings are going to die. Don't get all freaked out. But one of your siblings could go through a major transformation during this time. And during this time, remember, is the next 20 years. So like a sibling could get sober, or a sibling could deal with some psychological problems, or they could do something else that represents getting to the root cause and changing it. So there could be something, it could be something positive. It could be something challenging. It's Pluto, so there might be some difficult sibling stuff. Pluto, though, usually brings you into the topics, so you're probably dealing with the sibling stuff more if that's the case. Pluto can also be your car. I just don't think all of you are having, car trouble for 20 years, but it can transform your transportation, right? So for some, who knows, maybe you stop driving and start walking or riding your bike places. Maybe you move somewhere where that makes sense. Maybe you move somewhere that has a subway, you didn't ride one anymore, or the opposite happens, right? So it can be some kind of change related to how you get around from place to place. And sometimes that's represented by moving or having a new commute or having something happening, you can't drive anymore, or something else, or you start working from home and now you just don't have to go anywhere. There's many things that can happen with that, but it doesn't to me feel like the real heavy hitting emotional side of this transit. To me, it feels more like changing the way you talk, changing the way you communicate. And if you want to work with Pluto here, really focusing on being heard. And there's also, I think about Pluto being in the third, getting a little too obsessed with your mind. So you could actually be in a stage where you have more time or more energy focused on learning. So consider what you're starting to learn here at this time, and know that whatever things you try to learn now, it could be like foreshadowing of what the next 20 years could be focused on building or learning, or getting good at, right? Learning skills, taking little courses on things, that kind of stuff. So that's something to keep in mind also for Sagittarius. And we'll go on now to our next sign, which is going to be Capricorn. Okay, so for Capricorns, Pluto entering Aquarius. And just a shout out to everyone that there is another video on Pluto and Aquarius that tells you more about the major themes of this 20-year transit, that has more predictions and stuff. So I will make sure that video is linked in the description as well. And I'm actually going to go ahead. Let me go ahead here and find it. I'm going to link it in the comments. It does say March 23rd, 2023, but keep in mind it's still accurate for the whole transit. Okay, so when we're done, you guys can go watch that video if you want to. Okay, now I need more water. Okay. Okay, Capricorns, Pluto in Aquarius is in your second house of money. Okay, so Pluto entering your money house can bring you changes in the next 20 years to money. Now, this does not mean like, oh, you get rich on the 20th. It's the thing about using Pluto to transform is Pluto doesn't give you shit unless you change everything. You got to go through hell for that thing. You got to go to the underworld and face your demons. So this might be a time where Capricorns are confronted with money fears, and they're shown, right? The sun's going to illuminate what you're most afraid of when it comes to money. That does not mean this has to be horrible. You can work with this transit by consciously choosing to face those fears, especially because Pluto tends to be fears of things that are not necessarily tangible, right? Like, so if you guys start getting all afraid that someone's going to hack your money all of a sudden, you can thank Pluto for that. But Pluto might show you where your money isn't working if it's not working. Now, if your money is working, you don't have problems here, then from when Pluto entered Aquarius back in March of 2023, all the way until, 20 years from now, this is a time where Pluto can like slowly work on you changing your money story. So this could have to do with things like being self-supporting, or whether you're relying on other people. Pluto going through your second house could be a time where you're more self-supporting. It could be a time where you are learning why that matters. It could be a time where you're dealing with consequences in situations where you're not self-supporting because of those entanglements and people getting vicious with you, or getting, whatever. I can't think of the expression. He who holds the money calls the shots. I think I didn't say that right, but basically whoever has the money has the power. And so you might get some lessons during this time of how that shows up for your life personally. And it might be you just have to do stuff because your boss is in control. Or it might be that, especially if there's a sibling that has power over you because of money, this might be a time where it really affects you. Now, Pluto ruling your third house and it being in the second, it's possible some Capricorns during this time, especially Capricorn risings, could have money from a sibling. but it's sometime over the next 20 years. So that's not a very specific prediction. Sorry, that's how it goes on general readings. But it could also be your siblings are helping you make money, or they're helping you change how you do money, or something about your finances is affected by a sibling relationship. Some of you could sell cars, or you could have a car have something to do with, like, you could get a car loan, but it's almost like I don't want to give financial advice here, but with Pluto in the second house, getting a car loan, it's almost like it could be a very big deal. And that makes me tend to feel like, I don't know, like, actually, no, oh my gosh, forget everything I just said about that. I hate it when I mess up something and I'm live. We're going to try that again, because Pluto does not rule your third house. Pluto rules your 11th house. So everything I said about the sibling and the car, we're going to scratch that. Actually, I'm going to start over for Capricorn now, and then I'll go back and delete that, from the live, I think. So, or I'll just put the timestamp on here. So we're going to start over for Capricorn. Pluto entering the second house does bring money focus. Focus on independence, focus on building wealth. Now that might be for some, focus on clearing out problems related to finances. So this could be something like choosing to pay off your debts, or getting your credit report and trying to get it higher, something where you're consciously trying to change your money. It could also be, for Capricorn, something where it's, if you have financial problems, they're gonna like show up at this time. So if you have unpaid bills you didn't know about, right? Secret money you didn't know about. Now, this could be good money you didn't know about coming to you, because Pluto rules your 11th house. The 11th house is a money house. So you have your money house planet, one of your money house planets, in your other money house. So cha-ching. Now that doesn't mean you all are going to get rich, but I do think if anyone was going to get rich off this transit, it would be Capricorns, because of that combination, right? The 11th house being money from the work you've already done. The second house being money in your bank account, what you've got, what you have, and what you own. So some of you, it's like you're investing, you're getting payouts. Some of you might be learning how to invest, right? So it feels, to me, this transit for Capricorns feels more powerful and more empowering than some of the other signs, just because of that placement. But it all depends on where you're at in your life and your money story right now, right? So if you're like super broke and you want to change it, Pluto is going to make that pain point bigger until you change it. And, it's like Pluto stuff doesn't just change overnight too. So that's what kind of sucks about it. It's like the pain point's still there while you're making the changes until you start to see the results. Other ways this can show up. You might be more financially independent at this time, or you might have more weird entanglements from things that you haven't been financially independent about. You might see the negative consequences of not paying your own bills, or sharing money from people. It's like when you have people who are helping you and then they want stuff that you don't want to do, and you have little things like that are like entanglements, financial entanglements. If you are a Capricorn with financial entanglements, Pluto going into your second house may bring that focus up more. So, that's what I think about that. Let me think what else. What else? I don't know why I'm drawing a blank here. This can go so many ways, right? I could see one Capricorn rising being like, okay, I'm going to clear out all my debt. I'm going to pay it all. I'm going to change the way I focus on money. I could see someone else being like, okay, I got all this money. Now I got to put some time and energy into figuring out what to do with it. Pluto in the second can also be like energetically a time in life where you are focusing in and shutting people out. So especially if you have a lot of second house planets already, this might be a time where, for whatever reason, you need more psychological protection, or you are really, really, really focused in on your goals. Pluto can do that. You could be really, really focused on your possessions, buying or selling things. You could be really, really focused on what you have and what you own and your financial security. And I don't really see anything wrong with that. in terms of just focusing on what you've got. But if you want to work with this transit, sometimes you need to make sure you're taking the blinders off and you're like letting other people in if this transit affects you strongly. And there's always the polarity point of Pluto for balance, which is the opposite of whatever it is. So if money is just so like, some of you need to share. Some of you need to make sure you're giving a little bit of what you've got away and you're not just like hoarding it. This can actually, I'm not saying give all your money away, but some of you, it might help to have a little bit of freedom and looseness with your money at this time. Some of you also may find, Capricorns, that it's trust is going to come up. Trust issues are going to come up. You want to do everything yourself. And you may find that in some ways that's necessary. And, I think of Pluto in the second as like power over your money. So it can also be changing how you like that you're the one calling the shots. Like how in the business there's like the manager who, when you get there, they come out and they greet the people, or they're the face of it and they're the one everyone talks to. But there's usually a boss that's behind the scenes. Now, sometimes the boss will do that stuff, but there is a boss usually in companies and anything that no one really knows about, who has the control because they're the ones investing. They're the ones taking the risk. You as a Capricorn with this Pluto in the second house transit may be figuring out how to be in that space in some way where you are the one behind the scenes calling the shots. This might mean you just learn how to have more influence over people psychologically. It may be that you learn how to use your money in a way that it manifests in the world through power. And so lessons about power, powerless, money, finances, ownership, and wealth, these are all possible while Pluto is transiting that second house. But remember, this is 20 years. So see what happens on the 20th of January. See how that affects your life. See how that affects your money. And that's going to give you sort of a preview of some of the things you might see continuing on as Pluto goes through Aquarius. All right. Now on to the sign of Aquarius. Pluto is entering your sign. So what does it mean when Pluto goes into your sign? Well, it means you are going to be the one changing. Right? So Pluto, the house that Pluto's in, is going to tell us what area of life has the greatest potential for transformation, and usually what area of life we're focused on. Now, Pluto entering Aquarius means you're focused on you. You are focused on your life direction and what's special about you and what makes you unique and what your identity is. Now, Pluto in the first does kind of bring a little bit of a destabilization. It can bring a sort of a unsure feeling, because Pluto transforms, right? And it slowly works on you over time. But our first house is our identity. And we kind of need our identity to be pretty solid. So we can say, if someone says, "Who are you?" you can answer them, right? If your identity is not solid and someone's like, "Oh, hi, nice to meet you," you could tell them your name, but you're like, "Oh yeah, it's my name, but I'm thinking about changing it." It's kind of like being in that stage of life where you want to change your name because you feel different, but you don't know who you are yet. This is Pluto in the first house. Now, it's not going to be that strong this whole time, but there's this underlying energy of change. So it's totally normal when Pluto goes through your first house to change your job at some point during that time, to change your role in life. So it could be a natural shift where now you're a parent and you were not a parent before. It could be a natural shift where now you have this role in your job, but you didn't have that before. Or now you're retired and you weren't before. Other things like that, if someone asks you, "Who are you?" these are the things that are changing. Where you live, who you love, who your friends are. It's also possible to have partnership changes when Pluto's in your first house because it's opposite that seventh house of the other. So we cannot be who we are without the other. And sometimes phases of life are defined by who's with us, right? We have phases of life where, we're with this person in this relationship, and then we have phases where we're single, and then we have phases where we're in a different relationship, and we could even write the story of our life sometimes based on who we're with during those cycles of life. So the other is very important in terms of that. Let me see here. I'm just thinking of what else I can say about Pluto in the first. Yeah, just energetically, and when it comes to like psychologically, this is a time where it's really natural to want to focus more on what makes you the way you are and why you are the way you are and why you tick. So if you're feeling drawn to learn about yourself on a psychological level, or explore that, or focus on what makes you unique or find what's special about you, that's really natural for Pluto to bring your focus on that. It doesn't mean you can only focus on that for 20 years and you do nothing else, but that theme is going to be underneath everything. Changes to your physical body, changes to your appearance can happen, and these might be changes you initiate or things that just happen as a result of things you can't control. Going on now to our next sign, which is going to be Pisces. Pisces, Pluto enters your 12th house. I'm going to try hard to put a positive spin on this. I don't love this one. Well, let's talk about what Pluto does in the 12th house. Pluto, the planet of transformation, comes into your 12th house of the subconscious mind, your self-sabotage, and it also rules things we do in isolation, our meditation, our connection to spirit, our psychology, things about ourselves we don't want to see. Now, Pluto's going to act on those things and bring our focus to those things. So this could be the most positive way this could show up is now you meditate and you didn't before. Now you are getting a therapist and you didn't before. Now you are doing some other thing like that supports you in understanding your subconscious mind that you didn't before. The downside here is that usually we don't seek therapy or we don't seek psychological help until shit is getting wrong. Things go wrong first. So there can possibly be more of an awareness of self-sabotaging tendencies, more of an awareness of addictive tendencies. Now, there's also the positive spin on it that is like sometimes people get sober when Pluto goes through their 12th house. Sometimes people will, get clear of an addiction. Sometimes you will find the root cause of a psychological challenge or a fear. But the downside here is that Pluto just rules fear. And so it can just make us more afraid. It can make us more concerned about our psychological stuff, the way we are psychologically. We can just react to our own thought processes and our own subconscious stuff with more fear. So being aware of this and trying to to this situation and bring light to the situation can be a good approach. Another good approach to this is to know, since Pluto is going to bring your focus to 12th house topics like addiction, recovery, like isolation, like going off to a place to meditate, getting quiet and, being by yourself and contemplating the meaning of life and like learning meditation techniques. You can consciously bring your awareness to these things. And this can be one way to kind of work with Pluto going through that 12th house. Other things about Pluto in the 12th is we need to talk about the void. Because the void, it's like there are stages in everyone's life where they are sort of in the void, which means when you're in the void, you just can't get like validation. You can't go to someone who tells you what to do. When you're in the void, there's an openness and a blankness. There's an uncertainness. It's like being out to sea in the middle of the water and you can't see land in any direction. But this is a metaphor for how you feel about your life at the time. And you might still be getting up and going to work every day, or you might still be showing up to the life that you have, but feeling like there is this openness, and that usually is not a comfortable feeling. Usually we want to fill that space with a thing, and sometimes you can't. Sometimes this is the lesson of Pluto in the 12th house, is how to be in the void. Because when we are truly in the void and we just kind of release that, then there's something that bubbles up from within. And that thing that bubbles up from that quiet place, that is the thing that the Pluto in the 12th is teaching us. So now, this transit doesn't have to be horrible, but sometimes the things that happen to put us into the void are not comfortable. Sometimes they are not things we have control over, and sometimes they are hard. So I hate to give Pisces bad news because I love you guys, but this can be a more challenging transit because the more you don't want to look at yourself, the more you're running from yourself, the more you are like avoiding stuff about yourself that you don't want to see, that's going to be what makes this transit a little bit harder. And it's not like you have to see everything about yourself at once, but the thing that will make this transit easier is the desire to know the self. And the more you have a desire to know the self and a desire to be open to the messages from the universe, the easier this transit can be. And I wouldn't say it'll be easy, but that's what can make it easier. Pluto's going to bring your attention to 12th house things. So this could also be you just on your own being like, okay, it's time to get sober. It's time to go, get diagnosed and see if I have a mental health problem. It could be something like that. It could be something like, okay, it's time to see if I'm having spiritual problems. Let's see what they really are. Pluto can help you in that sense. What Pluto helps with, and it doesn't always feel like help, but it can help you get to the root cause of topics related to that house. So the 12th house represents our mental health, our spirituality, our tendency to self-sabotage, our addiction. So like 12th step stuff, that's 12th house. Spiritual crisis and how to solve it, that's 12th house. Everything mental health, that's 12th house. That doesn't mean every Pisces is mental or every Pisces gets sober. Each of you are going to have this show up in a different area of life that applies to you. Sometimes gurus and teachers can be 12th house. Usually it's 9th house though. So maybe when Mars is with Pluto, we'll see that for you guys. Some things like being revealed about teachers or getting new teachers or getting rid of old ones. Sometimes that can happen with 12th house transits. And let me think. Okay, so the polarity point of Pluto going through your 12th is the 6th house, which means even though Pluto's going to bring your focus to the void and to getting quiet and meditation techniques or stuff that helps you deal with your 12th house problems, the ways that you are your own demons, whatever your demons are, right? Pluto's going to put you in touch with your demons. So that's going to be different for everyone because we all have different demons, right? Some of you just might have self-doubt, and Pluto's like showing you how bad this self-doubt is if you've avoided seeing it, that kind of thing. Or maybe Pluto shows you that it's hard for you to say no, and you're like seeing it and you'd rather not see it. The way to work with a polarity point is to actually go to work, go to work or do something to be of service to someone else and help someone. That's the way to balance this energy, is to help people. Help people, be of service, be useful. Now that doesn't mean all the time, because that would kind of be a distraction. So the way to really, really work with this one is to be able to show up in your life and be present and use things like not use time as a distraction. So for people who are like going out to eat all the time because they don't want to face themselves, or like, I remember when I was a teenager, the second I got home, I would get on the phone, and it's like, I was a teenager, it's fine, but it's like, I just couldn't sit with myself. I couldn't sit in my own energy. If you are like this and you are maybe not a teenager and you're like, the second you get home, you're calling someone, you're doing some chores, you're doing something, and you're always in motion to avoid the way you would feel if you stopped moving, that is what Pluto might also show you. And to be able to be in motion and be moving through life without escaping from life. That is the ultimate lesson that we can learn when Pluto's either in our 12th or our 6th house. So that's what I have for Pisces. All right. So for those of you who want more, you can always book a reading. You can book a private reading for transits and to see, when Pluto's really going to affect you, how Pluto's going to affect you. Also, go watch my video. I put a link. I'll put another link right now on Pluto in Aquarius. If you want more on the general things that we're going to deal with in society during this time, what we're going to see, there's timestamps on the video so you can go to the parts that you want to watch the most. And what else? What else do I need to tell you guys? Yeah, there's a link to book a private reading. And you can also, if you're just jumping on the live, you can go back and watch it for your sign. And you can always see, I'll show you guys right now, you can always see what sign is here. That's how you can see what sign we're on in the video. So even if you're going back before the timestamps, you can always check that out. And thank you. Thank you to everyone who comes and shows up for these, and everyone who comments and shares, and everything you guys do to make this channel grow. You have made this channel grow a lot, and I appreciate you so much. And I will see you all in the next video. Bye, guys.